again, I'm pro witch, but I'm anti payoff.
And then Josh Brolin immediately goes, "What the fuck?" after. So,
but I do think when the horror is horroring, it's really strong.
That's where the root of a lot of my problems are.
and that's what I'm here. I'm here to learn about the kids being missing.
And welcome back to another episode of Pinoys versus the World. My name is Harald Hilseth.
My name is Chris Ankiko.
And Chris, we
Lark.
are back online.
he's right out the gate. He's
Lark
like,
is
"I'm
ready
here."
to go. Lark is ready to go. No, hey, Chris, we're just gonna jump into it. Today we have one of our best, cinema friends who's coming back from a strong episode with us talking about the Minecraft movie back in April. Andrew Lark Leever, everyone. Round of applause. Round of applause for Lark.
Hello, I didn't interrupt anything before.
Zero. He's done this. He's done this professionally. He is a streamer, famed streamer, Lark. We talk a lot, Lark, about how well the Minecraft episode went and how there was discourse about your photoshopped head on just like ridiculous random bodies and how it's happened to you before with other podcasts. Would you like to talk to the viewers more about your Minecraft lore?
I didn't realize there was like discourse about it, but there was another back in the day. I did a radio show, and it also had me photoshopped with 3 other people on random. Maybe that was it. So I didn't realize.
The Twitter sphere speaks loud and clear. But today we're not here to talk about something fun or even jovial. At least to some people, like Minecraft was for all the kids. We're here to talk about weapons. Zach Cregger's, I guess right now it's sitting at being a hit, Chris. It's something we were all really hyped to see. And Lark, thank you, Lark, invited us to, I believe it was opening night, right? Thursday?
Yeah, it was opening night. It was, they always do the Thursday before the Friday opening night, and you can go at like 7 p.m. on Thursday. So we went on Thursday opening night. And the theater was packed. The theater was pretty packed.
Yeah. There were a lot of people there, actually. I think it was also, too, it helped that it was the IMAX. Even though it didn't, like, go the whole way, but it was just like, here, it's IMAX,
Yeah.
Bigger sound.
It is bigger sound, bigger picture. I mean, it's what they're selling, again, in all of these ad campaigns kind of leading up to weapons. I know we talked about it before we hopped on the pod today, but we're just going to jump today right into spoiler talk just in general. I think we'll just generally have some time to talk about the film, and then we'll just go straight into spoilers at any given point. So from here on out, if you haven't had a chance to see Weapons yet, you want to go check it out, maybe click off, come back, why not? And try to get some of these little housekeeping things out of the way in the top. Follow us at Pinoys Versus. Follow Lark, wherever Lark is, at Lark. Figure out where all of his socials are.
All my stuff is.
All of his stuff is on the internet. And we're just going to jump right into it.
We'll link it in the description. I
can do this now. I can point down. Description below. Hell yeah. We are very excited again to have Lark on to talk about a horror film this time. I know, again, I talked to you a little bit about this when we sat down next to each other, Lark. We have funnily enough, a very similar opinion of Zach Cregger's first movie, The Barbarian, which is, remind me, Chris, is a movie you have or have not seen yet?
I've still not seen that movie. So
okay.
I've heard a lot of, I don't know how similar or different it is to Barbarian, but I feel like I got a pretty good indicator of what Zach Cregger is like as a director from this, and plus the descriptions I've heard about Barbarian. So yeah, that's where I come into it with.
Lark, without spoiling the big spoiler that is in that movie, what did you think of The Barbarian?
It's okay. It's not my favorite. I'm. You can call me the cousin who's too woke, but it has a lot of sort of ableist themes that I'm just sort of done with. But he had good ideas. It did interesting things, and it really made me excited for this movie. I think that even after watching this movie, I really do think that Zach Cregger has sauce. I think he has an interesting juice to him, and I'm always going to be excited for what he has next. So Barbarian is not my favorite, but I still was intrigued after watching it. You watch a movie and you're like, okay, he's got something going on, but it wasn't my favorite. It was okay.
Yeah.
I like Justin Long. He's great.
Do we love Justin Long?
Both Harold and I in this movie, there's a brief Justin Long cameo, and we both like turn to each other. We're like, oh, because we both love Justin Long. So
I was like one of the funnier things is like we didn't even talk about Zach Cregger. Like we need to talk about with our boy Long just at the very top. And the fact that he shows up in this movie is really fun.
Just briefly too. I was cracking up that he really is just like a cameo, but I was like, oh shit, of course he's in it. He's great. I love Justin Long.
Justin Long is 10 out of 10 in everything he's in. Again, may not be the biggest fan of the end of The Barbarian, but you know, it is a very interesting movie. Again, like if you had a chance to see The Barbarian with people in theaters, I think you're getting a very similar experience to what admittedly was a really fun time with a really active crowd up at Thornton Place up in Northgate. And it's just like, it was really fun to see it with people that I think wanted to come into the movies, right? Mm-hmm. Getting a little extra out of this really hyped horror film. I think we're just about to jump into it, right? Like, I mean, it's a lot of comedy elements. The last little background thing I think I want to ask you about, Lark, because you had some background on Zach Cregger's past with the Whitest Kids U'Know. And that's obviously like a comedy sketch group. And it's just kind of like he's taking this Jordan Peele route where it's like you start with comedy, but he's actually really a horror guy. And he's going to try to meld those two together in a way that probably only Zach Cregger really can meld them together, right?
Yeah, I mean, I loved Whitest Kids U'Know back in the day. I feel like if you're my age group, you probably just naturally were going to love them because they were part of that early YouTube sphere. Like, I have no idea what channel they were on. I have no idea. But like, the thing is, every one of their little sketches was uploaded to YouTube back in 2010, 2009, whatever. And I loved them all. Gallon of PCP, I still probably quote to this day. But I did learn that there's a couple things in this film that are like direct references to Whitest Kids U'Know that I didn't realize when I watched it. But apparently, it was released on the anniversary of Trevor Moore's death, who was the lead in Whitest Kids U'Know, which I thought maybe that was a coincidence. I was like, because, it's not really about him or anything, but apparently there's quite a few Whitest Kids U'Know winks in this movie that I didn't even realize existed. So clearly it still means a lot to Zach Cregger, and good for him for doing that sort of career change. I mean, I've always been a comedy like you think about Jim Carrey doing like Truman Show or Eternal Sunshine, where it's like, man, when he decides to be a serious actor, it's like mind blowing. I think there's something about that bridge between doing comedy and then doing something else that really works. So with Jordan Peele and with Zach Cregger doing comedy and then moving to more horror, it works out really well.
Yeah. No, and hey, we've seen it work really well now for almost like 10 years. Chris, real quick, before we just throw it over to a really short break and we like get into the meat and potatoes of this episode, it's really something I'm thinking of while we're chatting about this now. But there is probably something to be said too before we get into kind of the plot and more of like, our criticisms of the film. We need to talk a little bit about how hyped up this film was, and really I think that ad campaign that we all three of us talked a lot about before and after the movie once we got out of it. But this was really hyped up, 100% on Rotten Tomatoes, which, is not the best scoring metric by any means, but it's normally when you see something at 100%, you're like, okay, people tend to love this a lot, especially the critics. And that was the thing that I know surprised you somewhat, or if not the most, Chris, how much critic acclaim it was getting across the board. And maybe we should just dive into that a little bit too.
I mean, it's so interesting, yeah, in the weeks leading up to it. I mean, it was just like at least on Letterboxd, it was like a big blaze fest, I will say. Like, a lot of people were going like, like, fuck yes, and like, oh, like I've come out of the theater energized, and I was like, okay, like, what exactly is this movie? Like, is there some sort of like shocking twist or like, some execution that's like just insane that like you'll just go bananas for? So that was kind of like my expectations. Again, it's like, it's one thing if you go in like completely blind, but I think we all went in with a big like, high degree of expectation that this is going to be like the movie of like the summer, to kind of dethrone some of the superhero movies, at least in like critical acclaim and appeal. And I think as we'll get into, I don't think that it did not meet that sort of high for us. So it'll be interesting to see like what degrees of how much we liked it, I guess, when we get into talking about it. But yeah, it's just crazy to see the early reviews for it.
Yeah, those early reviews, go ahead, Lark, because I was about to toss it over to you. Those early reviews were high. The energy was palpable. I'm a huge fan of the trailers. Like, I'm not always like trying to get everything spoiled. And what's kind of interesting is that in those trailers, probably the biggest spoiler I can say thus far, is that there are a lot of shots from the final 15 minutes of this movie that are in those trailers. And like, you think about it a little bit, and I've been thinking about it a lot, about where I'm going to end up scoring this film. But you think about how much of the horror and like how much has been intertwined with it, or kind of like in major set pieces of the film, and maybe not constant throughout. Do you think the expectations were met from basically everything that, you know, we compared it to Longlegs a little bit, right? In the way that we were hyped up by the ad campaign, saw the movie, may not have felt as highly as others. But yeah, I'll hand it over to you, Lark. How did you feel about the expectations being met? And if it's honestly pretty fair at all to manage your expectations going into movies that have 100% in general, I guess.
I mean, I feel like I really try and separate myself nowadays as somebody who goes to almost every movie. Like, I don't even want to watch trailers. But the thing is, I always fall for it. And I really, in the time that is, because we've had a week or so, 2 weeks since it actually came out, I've been thinking more and more that like it felt very Longlegs to me, where the ad campaign is so good and so moving. And I don't even think the end result is bad. And I tried to tamper my expectations, but especially in regards to weapons, and I won't get into super spoilers, but I think what was promised is very different than what was given. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, but it ended up being a very different sell, I feel like, watching it. And I still liked, you know, what came out of Weapons, but the thing is, I was sold on this haunting visual of these kids running into the dark. And the beginning of Weapons does also mirror that. Like, it's a haunting, it's eerie, it's scary, it's dark. And I like that. But the thing is, when I went into Weapons, I was thinking that I was going into this movie that's going to be eerie, scary, dark, macabre. I don't know, you know, something like dim. And it just ended up not being that. And that's okay. You know, movies don't always have to be what you expect them to be. But in the case with something like this, with a marketing campaign like this, I feel like it did really strike me. Like, that image of the kids running into the dark is very haunting. And then the movie just wasn't haunting almost at all. It just wasn't like that. And in fact, that they almost didn't, it wasn't even really about the kids running into the dark very much. So I feel like, once again, sort of like Longlegs, the ad campaign is so good, but not exactly even what the movie's going for. And I don't know if that's anybody's at fault. I mean, it was a great ad campaign, but it just wasn't exactly what the movie was. And so I both went into it with really high expectations because of how good the ad campaign was and how good everybody was hyping it up. But then also because it wasn't exactly what I was given in the end. So I feel like I was sort of misguided twice when I went into Weapons.
Yeah, the double takes, kind of the double pumps, kind of crazy. Like, wanting to see like the positives of a movie that you had some expectations for, and then coming out of it feeling a different way. But I mean, I'm sure you all can tell either through listening or on YouTube that we are ready to get into the episode as a whole and this movie and our thoughts on Weapons, coming to you shortly after this break. And we're back to talk about Zach Cregger's Weapons. Chris, I'm going to toss it over to you. I know Lark touched on it a little bit before the break. There were expectations that we may have had heading into this film. But in first 5 minutes of the movie, you get the little byline that the little kid, orates over in every trailer we've seen. It's on the posters. At 2:17 in the morning, kids are Naruto running outside. Yeah, put a little Naruto over here in the empty space, Jonas, running across the screen. Just arms behind their back into the darkness. But then you find out that it's like, the reason that you don't really hear about it, and it is kind of loosely based on true stories, which is, I think, where I don't want to say criticisms begin, but I just thought it was a little funny that they were like, yeah, the lead up to this movie, all based on a true story. Couldn't find anything about anything like that happening, like an abduction in a small town or, all these kids disappearing. But then they immediately shut it. They were like, the reason you haven't heard about this is because, all the adults were so embarrassed that they couldn't figure it out. So we're like 5 minutes into the movie. What are you thinking about it so far, and kind of what you're expecting out of it? And what did you get out of Weapons, Chris, as a whole?
I mean, I will say, yeah, we'll just go right in front. Like, I thought it was like a 3 out of 5. Like, I was just sort of.
We're starting with the numbers.
I'm starting right with the numbers because I think I got to contextualize everything that I say. But like, it's one of those things where I think, again, like we've been saying, like the marketing and all this stuff, and like my impressions of like Longlegs too. Again, I think that's a very apt comparison. Like, it's one I was certainly thinking about as well. But like, the premise is like so intriguing. You see, like the movie starts with all the kids Naruto running out, and you don't know like where they went, and like right there immediately you think, okay, like, and then we go to like Julia Garner, and then she's playing the teacher that has all these kids, and then there's just the one kid, and then you're like, okay, like my first thought was like, how is that going to affect her, But then it's sort of like it jumps in and it immediately starts jumping into the non-linear structure. And I think that's where the root of a lot of my problems are, is that the way it like builds it together. I think the movie is about like 2 hours and 9 minutes long.
Yeah.
But it feels like it's 3 hours just because of the way that like it'll start on one character and it'll just follow them, and then it'll stop. And then we'll go to the next character, and it will follow them for a while. Maybe they'll bump into enough of the character, and then they'll stop. And then like that structure is just very weird until kind of the very end. I think when it gets to like the kid, that's when it kind of like sort of works, but there's just too much like of this like back and forth like in the timeline with that nonlinear structure. And yeah, I think that kind of just like colors my entire like impression of the movie. And also too, again, just like it doesn't really touch on too much of like the trauma of the teacher of Julia Garner, and I thought they would explore that more. And again, like you said earlier, like it's not really much about like the kids either. It's like once the kids descend into the basement of the house, which we learn later, they don't really talk about it. None of the kids that are like actually in like cursed basically are like spoken about or to. They don't get any speaking lines at all. So there's just a lot of like weird, I think just in general, there's just a lot of like threads and like aspects of the plot and like the world that are just very like missed out on. Yeah.
No, I know we talked a little bit about number ratings out of the straight out of the movie theaters. So maybe I'll just ask you as well, Lark, along with your spoiler review and kind of generally how you felt about the movie outside of what you've said already. What kind of numbers score would you give Weapons now that it's been about a week and we've sat with it for about a week since we saw it?
Yeah, I would too give it about a 3 out of 5. And it is because, I did enjoy the movie, but it's the whole marketing campaign is saying these kids vanished, and that's fucked, because it was. That's a fucked idea. And it presents, like if you watch any of the trailers or whatever, it presents Julia Garner as this teacher, and you're going to be like, oh my gosh, you are going to be seeing it. Like, how does that affect her? How does the community? Because you see Josh Brolin being combative against her. And the thing is, I think arguably one of the best moments in the movie. Once you get to know the movie a little better, there's some better moments later on. But I think with that George Harrison song playing in the beginning, when all the kids are running out in the dark and it's so beautifully shot, that is one of the best moments of the movie because you are engrossed in this mystery. It's haunting. It's George Harrison, so the music's good. Like, I was so invested right then and there in learning about this mystery and being involved. And then it's like what Chris said, you go about 20 minutes with that, and then it takes you right back to the start again. And I feel like it loses so much momentum because you're invested in Julia Garner. You want to know, oh my gosh, how does this affect you as a teacher? Your kids are gone. The adults are coming after you. That's really riveting stuff. And then for whatever reason, Zach Cregger decided to take this in a chapter-based way where every chapter is sort of the same amount of time. And he does a good job at not really repeating things. But the thing is, it gives you a piece of this mystery. Like, you are sold on the mystery, right? The marketing tells you the kids vanish. Okay. That's the mystery. Where do the kids go? And so in that first chapter, you see the kids leave and you get a little piece right at the end. And then it swaps to a different chapter and it brings you right back. And now there's no more mystery for a while until the end of the chapter. And it gives you another mystery piece. But it's like, I mean, I feel like it takes me out every time it swaps chapters because it's like, okay, well, now I got to watch a whole 30 minutes before we even get another little piece of this mystery that I've been sold on. You know, maybe that could have been done better. I don't know. But I feel like that really detracted for me, is that all these things that you wanted, you know, you're in it for this mystery, and it really treats the mystery with almost, it doesn't even care. It's mainly about the world. I don't really know.
There's like Alden Ehrenreich's character. I think the way that it treats that character kind of shows like the flaws of the entire like non-linear structure. Because like there are some points where like there's that Austin Abrams character who's kind of like the drifter, and there's a point where like I guess first of all, Julia Garner, she like goes into a bar, and then Han Solo comes in, and like they like do their thing,
and Han Solo do their thing.
Yeah, Shalabal and Han Solo. Yeah. But yeah, so they do their thing. And then they meet up, and then it kind of goes away from him for a while. But then when we come back to him, then we see like even before that, and then we catch up to that Julia Garner in the bar moment, and then they skip a pass, and then they go to like the Austin Abrams character where he like meets the drifter, and that kind of like, I'm trying to like put together the order of events in my mind, like when these guys showed up when. I think that's kind of the flaw of the non-linear, where it's like, okay,
right,
when did this, what thread runs into this? When do they skip back? When do they reconnect? How much time passes? And there's a lot of that too. Like there's like multiple times at like the gas station where like Benedict Wong, like when he goes all curse mode, like he shows up and then boom, they cut back like before like the attack even happens. So
and it cuts back to the principal. It cuts back to Wong's character, and being like, okay, here's the lead up. This is, remember that time that you got a call and he was telling you to back off, but you didn't back off, and then he's actually just there with his partner, like in like a grocery setting, basically lining up for this big Gladys reveal. I mean, I know I'm jumping ahead of even like my own personal thoughts on the movie, so I'll just get that out of the top. I might be feeling at this point after a week, after seeing the film, that I might be coming out of this group here probably feeling the strongest on the film, but I definitely still had my gripes. I think there's something about Zach Cregger's style that I really like, mad respect, right? I think he's gone out there and made 2 out of 2 like really unique horror films that I just don't think hit for everyone. And I've had pretty spectacular like ad campaigns. Like whoever's running Zach Cregger's like marketing or like whatever studio that he was able to produce this with, like they're insane. They're so good at marketing out these like horror flicks. That also have a lot of comedy elements, right? And I think that's something that I came out of the movie initially feeling like, hey, did we like watch a comedy? Honestly, like it's a horror film, right? I've fallen kind of in this area where like I was questioning if it was even a horror to begin with. But the more I kind of talked about it, I got to shout out friends of the pod, Chloe Gix and Julian LaPierre, huge fans of this movie. Came out giving it 10 out of 10, 9 out of 10. Like they were like, this worked for them like across the board. And especially Chloe is like the horror queen in our group. So she just like, she gets this kind of stuff right. And I'm not necessarily a horror guy to begin with. So I don't know if that has anything to do with how I receive the strengths of this movie. But I do think when the horror is horroring, it's really strong. Josh Brolin's, that character parent he's playing, looking for his kid, that whole weird dream sequence is really interesting to me. Like you kind of touched on before, Chris, like the first 15 to 20 minutes are really interesting to me, and had like this sense of like I was on kind of the edge of my seat at that point. And like if you're having the chapter and the episodic way of telling the story of this town and traumatic kind of response they're having to literally losing like 26 kids. Like I don't want to act like they all seem like they bounce back too quickly, but if they all disappeared at the same time and you've got Ring camera evidence of them doing it all creepy like they were doing, again, Naruto across the screen type of shit, and it was so intriguing until the episodic things just kept coming. Like I know Lark, you and I, we were interacting a lot during the film when it goes to Paul and it goes to Austin Abrams' character James, who's living on the street, and he's just a guy who's like using and not trying to get caught by the cops. It's funny, but it pulled me out, I think, about the strongest horror elements of this film. And I know, again, that's one of those things that I think worked for people, but the episodic nature of it being like 6 episodes and 6 chapters within this movie made it feel like Chris was saying, you thought it was a 3-hour movie. I came out of the film feeling like it was like 4 to 5 hours long. And I think it really had to do with the way that was all kind of told. So by the time we reached the end of this movie and we admittedly get a really fun, I think, just ridiculous like action scene, like kind of. I don't even know if it's like it's got elements of horror, right? When the kids are weaponized against Gladys, who, big spoiler alert, is kind of the main antagonist. Like she's kind of like a clown. She's like off-brand It, you know, like she's kind of a witch. You know, again, if I was going to talk about something I liked about the movie, we just have a good old-fashioned witch. Like she doesn't have to have all this background. I get kind of annoyed sometimes. I was talking with Julian about this. Back in 1750, this witch or this demon got exorcised from this body, and now he is back to wreak havoc. Not my favorite trope in horror.
Pazuzu,
So,
he's back.
he's back. You're the Babadook. You know what I mean?
Like you got to meet up with the expert on Pazuzu, and they can tell you all his history, and that's how he exists. I don't care, man.
And then
There's
the
just a
guy who's
demon.
the guy who's the expert, he's the demon at the end of the day. See, that's the thing. It all comes back to Pazuzu. But no, it's so true, because at the end of this movie, like I do think, again, it goes back to its strengths, which I think it's a very funny movie. It can be very scary at times. But the chapter and episodic way of telling the story did not work for me as much. And again, I think there's a huge aspect that's hit all three of us. I'm going to toss it back over to you, Lark. Because again, these expectations coming into the movie were very high. And I feel like when you sell the movie kind of predicated on this basis that all of these kids disappear, and then you spend less than, I think, half the movie talking about that, I just was let down a bit. So I can respect, again, Zach Cregger going out there and doing something really unique. I don't think I've seen a horror film like this that's this funny and it has enough horror elements in it to keep me kind of locked into the thrill. I mean, yeah, Chris, you and I, we're kind of like, you know, in horror films, we kind of cover our faces a little bit. You're like, oh God, it's like getting so close to the screen, jump scares, you know, but there aren't even a whole lot of jump scares in this film. So, you know, go off of that.
Yeah, no, that's going to be my last little side that I was saying. Because, yeah, I do kind of brace myself. And, like, at the beginning, I was bracing myself more because I was like, okay, like, very intrigued by the setup. But after a while, it was like, oh, okay, maybe I don't need to do that as much. That's kind of, again, not familiar with Zach Cregger's, like, movies or style. I was kind of like, oh, okay, I guess this is not really that type of movie. There's only, like, one jump scare that, like, startled me a little bit. But I was very surprised at how little it, like, actually scared me.
And then Josh Brolin immediately goes, "What the fuck?" after. So
funniest part of the movie.
That's true. Yeah.
Funniest part of the movie.
That was very funny.
That and the giant AR-15 just on top of that house, loaded in like a video game. Like, Lark, you and I were just like, "Oh my!"
It's like
what
from
are we doing here?
Zombies.
Yeah, seriously. Well, maybe we should just jump right into talking. I think about at least a part of the movie I did enjoy, which was like the first 30 minutes or so, and I was actually intrigued when you go back and you talk about Josh Brolin's character Archer from Justine, which is Julia Garner's character, Justine's like class and like her perspective. And it was really interesting to jump over to Josh Brolin's, right? Like you find out Josh Brolin's character is the one who writes Witch on the side of the truck that Julia Garner's character is driving, and things are starting to piece together. Is there a lot there to like, or a lot there that kind of like set up your, I don't want to say disdain for this film, but just generally the criticisms that we've had that aren't really aligning with kind of like how most people have received the movie, right?
I mean, I feel like we talked about how we like the teacher aspect, and that's interesting. That's really interesting. And then also immediately after the teacher, I mean, the chapter changes and it goes to Josh Brolin's character, who's a father, and he's the father of one of the kids who's missing, and he's justifiably mad, he's angry, he's sad, and you also get a really interesting glimpse into his character. And then you see even how both of these characters interact a little. You know, you said that he wrote the witch on the side of her car. He obviously distrusts Julia Garner's character, and that stuff is really interesting. And the thing is, I found myself just really wanting more of Julia Garner's character and Josh Brolin's character, because those are both really interesting. They both have an interesting side of kids vanish. And it ties into what we were talking about, where kind of the movie almost doesn't even care about kids vanish, because after Josh Brolin's chapter, you go on to the cop, and then you go on to the drifter, and both of those guys are sort of barely relevant to this main mystery. They come in and out, like you see them a couple times. They have sort of relevance, but especially the cops chapter, in my mind, and I think Kiko and I were talking about this, where this is sort of why it felt so long, is you get this cops chapter, which is like 30 minutes, and it's like no more mystery is even involved in his chapter. Like you just kind of, it almost feels, I mean, he's part of the story, but feels totally separate. And it's setting up all these other things. Oh, the whole cop department is corrupt and there's all these things going on that are not super relevant to the story. And I mean, it's still good. Like, I mean, it's still an interesting story, an interesting character. You know, he's kind of a scummy cop, you know, he's cheating. All these things are happening, but it's just not relevant to the mystery or the characters I care about. He's only adjacently relevant to Julia Garner's character, and he's not relevant at all to Josh Brolin's. So when you're watching this guy's whole chapter play out, I just kept being like, well, I want to know more about the emotions involved in these two characters I care about. And I also want to know more about the mystery. And you're not getting any of those things when you're watching his chapter or the following Drifter chapter. And I think I was seeing a lot of buzz online being like, the Drifter guy is like the standout of the movie. And I mean, he was a good actor. He did well. I liked him, but it was sort of the same thing where it was only adjacently involved with the mystery. And at the end of his chapter, you know, finally he goes in the house and he finds these things. But after the movie, we were sort of brainstorming, like, you could have just cut out this guy entirely and had his role filled by Benedict Wong and his husband. Like, it was just like, I don't know why we're having a whole chunk dedicated to this character who admittedly did a very good job. He acted very well. And I enjoyed watching him, but it felt like it was so aside from the movie I was trying to watch.
Right.
Yeah.
Did the tones match?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, too, I think, talk about like Josh Brolin's like kid. I think Josh Brolin's kid is the only one that explicitly bullies.
Yeah.
The one kid that isn't, like, you know, who isn't cursed because he's a member of the family.
Bro deserved it.
I thought they were going to explore that a lot.
Yeah.
They should have explored it. And the thing is, at the very end, it's revealed to you as almost like a bit, like, oh, and his kid is a jackass. And now you're figuring out that his kid was the bully. But that could have been really interesting because, like, obviously Julia Garner's character was attached to this one remaining kid and saw that he was bullied. And there's a connection there that just isn't explored. And, oh, she saw that these kids are bullying him. And the kid that was bullying him ended up being Josh Brolin's kid. And that's such an interesting thing. I wish we had more time with these two characters and you could have explored that dynamic a little. And I feel like the chapter format really hinders that because you didn't get to explore that. That made me sad.
Is there a version of this movie, Chris, where the chapter format isn't kind of the predicated way that Zach Cregger wanted to tell his story, right? Like, is there a way that you can tell this story where maybe you get some backtracking, but you don't get, like, I'm looking at some of the names again, like Justine, Archer, Paul, James. Like, we were also talking, it was getting a little biblical for a second, and then I was like, I don't know if Archer's in there. So, like, I was like, maybe I'm thinking too much about how many, like, layers to this meaning there are, but it's just kind of like in the moment, I was like, what is Zach trying to say? Well, I'm also trying to get spooked out of my boots, you know?
I think that was the other thing too. Besides the structure, I forgot all the people's names. Mm-hmm. Like, people would come up and I'd be like, Archer. I'm like, okay, which one is Archer? For a
That's
little bit.
Josh
I think
Brolin's character, right? Yeah, Archer.
Yeah.
Like, obviously you see who we're following right after the title card, but it is a little bit of a reset. I'm like, who?
And Paul is the cop and James is the drifter.
James is the guy. Yeah, James is the guy who stabs Paul about 4 or 5 different times with needles that he has already used.
Needles.
Great. That scene, I will say again, like, while I agree, especially with both of you, that like that middle part of the movie took me out of it, like, just a little bit too much. Felt a bit like high profile, really high like level of comedy writing that maybe you'd post on like again, like Zach Cregger's background is on like online content.
I mean, I think the comedy aspect, I think a lot of people enjoyed that shift to comedy, you know? Yeah. And of course, the final act, which I also, mind you, I'm not the biggest fan of the movie, but I did like the final act. I liked where it ended up, and I liked what Harold's talking about. I liked the fact that it was a cartoonish witch. Like, I'm kind of sick of grief horror. I watched Bring Her Back. I really like Bring Her Back. But the fact that it was another grief horror movie, I was sort of like, I'm kind of over this right now. Because ever since Hereditary came out, every movie has to be a grief horror. Okay, I really I love it. I love the idea. I'm just tired of it. Give me a witch. And the thing is, this one was like, it's a fucking witch.
And we'll give you a witch.
I was like, hell yeah. But once again, it kind of clashes with the idea that I was sold on, which is this haunting, even the house, that door opening and it's pitch black. That's so haunting. There's this haunting idea that I'm sold on that, I mean, it was a fucking fun witch, and I love the ending. I love the witch. However, the ending sort of has these elements to comedy, and the cop and drifter chapters also have a very Whitest Kids U'Know-esque comedy thing. I'm cheating on my wife, and the wife's dad is the chief of police, and I sucked a drifter, and like, it's funny. It's interesting. Like, I was invested in this sort of funky character study, but it just kind of felt out of place because I'm here for this mystery and I want to follow this mystery. And then as soon as we get to, oh, well, bless his goddamn heart, Benedict Wong, his chapter was incredible, I think. I think he was one of the best actors in the movie. And we were talking about how we haven't really seen him in too much. Like, he was Wong and like Doctor Strange and stuff.
Yeah.
But he was really great. He was really great. And I liked him and his husband. I liked his chapter a lot. I liked what he did. It was almost just like cut out, just remove the cop and the drifter chapters and just tone it down a little. And I think you could have had a more cohesive piece. I think it's like, you got to keep to the mystery because, well, and the thing is, they're trying to build even more suspense. So when you finally get the reveal of what's going on, I think that's Benedict Wong's chapters when you're like, okay, it's a fucking witch. It's a weird witch.
Yeah.
I was telling these guys that she reminded me of Hocus Pocus.
Yeah, no, it's Hocus Pocus.
Big and makeup and the bright hair.
The big clown makeup is really like,
she had a Mary Poppins bag. I was having here's the thing is, I really had a lot of fun with where it ended up going. I liked the idea of a weird witch. And the thing is, we were talking about over-explaining earlier, and this and Together both did a really good job, sorry to talk about a different movie, of not going too deep into the mystery. Like, I don't want to know. I don't want to know what the lore, oh, it's Pazuzu, and he's an ancient Mesopotamian guy. I don't give a shit. The witch has a weird plant which has evil witch powers. That's all I need to know.
It's the most cursed bonsai plant you've ever seen. It's covered in thorns. Why did you even let this lady into your house? Which I just think is also a hilarious level to this,
I ended up really liking his parents in the end. The main kid, who was, by the way, a stunning actor.
Yeah.
I'm a notorious child actor hater because I think they're always bad, but this guy did really good. I really liked him, and I think it was really funny to get this. His parents are weird. Like, you get this, his parents, there's something going on with his parents the whole movie, and then when you finally get his chapter, you get this. His parents are really funny. I found they're kind of like very default, like, oh, kiss any girls at school today, son? Like, cartoonish parents that I think a lot of us have had, and that made me happy. They were goofy like that. And then they had the evil witch aunt that showed up. And I feel like I really liked how they brought her into that. Oh, I don't really know her either, son. She's your mom's fucking weird sister.
I'm not here. I'm only doing this because we're married, son.
We're married.
You'll know one day, son. Like, great.
It was funny. I liked everything that last chapter did, really. This is maybe skipping ahead. Maybe we have more to talk about in the other ones. But as soon as that kid's chapter started, which really is the one that like reveals all the secrets, it lets you in on the mystery. I was having a lot of fun. I loved the idea of the witch. It's so Hansel and Gretel. Bring me children, and she was so cartoonishly just evil. I really liked how her threat to the kid, which this made me fucking smile in the theater, but she brings his parents and she kind of has them under her control, and they're at the table, and the kid doesn't want to obey her, and she goes, well, I can do anything. I can have them hurt each other. I can have them eat each other, which is such a good threat to a kid. Because it's like, oh, I don't want to see my parents eat each other, because like death isn't really, you don't really have death in your mind.
Stabbing too. Like, stabbing their faces was crazy.
It's nice kid threats. Like, you can see how she persuaded this kid to do what she said. I'm going to have your parents eat each other. Oh, God, no! Like that, and it's almost like the Skidmarink thing. Like, your parents are going to vanish. Their faces are going to go off. Yep. And the windows will go away. And you're like, oh, what now? As a kid, I really liked the way that she threatened him. The thing is, I really liked the end chapter, too. I think it's just the chapter format and the way it was marketed really hindered it for me. I think it really did. But I loved the fact that it was a witch. I was so scared when the fucking gun showed up. I hadn't even thought about it, but I was like, oh, it's a school shooting. It's another grief horror. Yeah. It's a school shooting metaphor. And then I was like, fuck it. We don't care.
Chris,
I was like, okay, I like that.
That's exactly. I mean, again, I had the kind of a similar feeling that I was like, okay, that's weird. Again, feels like a video game. Chris, are you pro or anti-witch in this situation? Did the payoff kind of work for you? And again, we get that payoff a little bit over halfway through the film, right? Like the fourth, fifth chapter of the film, we go back to the principal's
at the very
character.
end.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Again, I'm pro witch, but I'm anti payoff because I'm trying to think about myself. Like, what was this movie about? Like, what were you supposed to like go take home with? I mean, I've seen a lot of reviews, like good and bad. I know, like Clara Curtis, I follow Clara Curtis on Letterboxd, and I think their review was like our indifference, like American indifference to tragedy, and how like the suburbs sort of like separate people and prevent people from like having like a united response to stuff. But you sort of lose a lot of that at the end of the movie when like the children just like maul the clown lady. Yeah. It's like at a certain point when the witch character is introduced, you're just having fun with that, and it's not really even about the kids anymore. It's just about what's this witch lady about, and how is this all gonna like end. It is not really about like initially what it is, like the disappearance of the kids, the trauma of the teacher, the trauma of the parents. It all just kind of flies out the window, because after that you'd only see Josh Brolin getting reunited with his kid, and then the rest of the kids are just like they're just like they're done after they maul the clown lady to death. So
I
it's
guess
like,
there's a little epilogue line. And the kids are okay.
Well, the kids, like, some of them started speaking again. That was the thing. The way the movie kind of, oh man, we're just bouncing around right now. But yes, the end of this movie and the little like the character Alex, who, like, I agree with you, Lark. It was a very good child actor, like someone that
was really good.
I was really pulled back in by that last like 15 minutes or so. And really interesting you bring that up too, Chris, about especially like kind of the commentary that he might be making on suburbia and like how suburban communities, right, like would react to a tragedy this big. That doesn't normally happen in those settings. Like you'd think they happen in more concentrated areas, like big cities, right? But and some of these horror tropey films that are set out in the suburbs that you get over the years with big houses, kind of just, again, they are set in those large houses with predominantly like, white wealthy families that like either like if it's someone breaking into the house or someone brought home a box they weren't supposed to bring home, or you got into Auntie Gladys's spiky bonsai tree up in the attic. The bonsai. Don't touch the bonsai, and then they touch the bonsai. So the credit I'd like to give this film is that I think Zach Cregger probably saw that and was like, I'm not really out here trying to make something that's been made before, especially with that. But there is something truly terrifying about losing a whole classroom of students, right? Because then you have, not only is it 27 or 20 to 27 kids spread throughout the school, it's like a group of children from the same class, and whoopsie, there was one kid that remained. And like when they flash back to seeing Gladys is like, I don't know, they kind of show the back shot of this, or like just like filmed from behind their heads of Alex being questioned by the FBI, and it turns out it's not his mom and his dad, it's his dad like with all of the like fork marks, like like all dolled up.
So you couldn't
Gladys
see
was
it.
Doing American Doll makeup.
She
to
said
like
he had a
grown-ass
stroke,
man.
so he couldn't talk or something.
Crazy. And then Gladys just showing up like just an 85. Like all respect to my elders out there, but she was not looking good, and she obviously was like, she was also acting a little weird too. So it's like to say that you have this I don't know, this like guardianship over Alex was just a little weird, right? So I don't know, maybe if we're going to talk about characters and like I'm going back to the middle of the film where I kind of lost me a little bit. Like I liked it in its own sense, but if we're talking about like Paul, right? Paul to me just like has so little to do with the actual plot of the film and kind of like what was keeping me on the edge of my seat. Kind of, I felt that feeling just whisk off of my shoulder once we went back to telling the story about Paul. I'm like, we're talking about Paul. I had an interesting take from one of my homies that was like, the way he saw it was Paul at the end of the day is just like a very inept cop, like, all due respect, like most cops in these situations would be, rather than their fictionalized like versions where it's like, oh, the cops and like true detectives are all gonna figure out what's happening, but they're all clueless. Like it takes like Archer, the dad character played by Josh Brolin, to like go out and be like, look, I'm doing all this work, the police commissioner is like, we're doing all we can, and it's kind of like real and true. So like, is part of the reason we get the two scenes, especially with Paul and the dude living on the street, like, is the reason we get that so that we can kind of get I don't know, just like taking it out and like feeling like, do the characters stories outside of the people directly affected by this matter in a town that small? But other than like that one scene where homie James, right? James gets into the house and is like, holy shit, I shouldn't have seen all these kids. That was spooky. I loved that. But that's about the one part about their two like scenes back to back that I really thought like added to the film weapons rather than just being like kind of feeling like sketch comedy in a way.
No, I think you're totally right. I think because if you think about Paul's interaction with the main story, it's almost because you would want, or exactly what you said, like if you'd expect, okay, if we're doing a message on inept cops or how the like logistically or systematically how you would go through a mystery like this, like there's interesting things you could do in that regard. But when we go to Paul's story, none of that is relevant. Like he interacts with Julia Garner for a second, but the thing is, everything you get about him interacting with the mystery is in her chapter, which I will give Zach Cregger credit. He doesn't really rehash a lot, which I think is good if you're going to do a chapter story like this. I don't want to see the same thing multiple times. And he does a good job at not really showing the same thing multiple times. But she's the one who says like, hey, why are like 30 kids are missing? How have you not come up with anything interesting? And even in Josh Brolin's story where he's talking to the police chief, this also comes up. But when you get Paul's chapter, it almost never comes up. It's totally irrelevant. It's about his own misadventures, which are barely relevant to the mystery. I think that's the main issue and why that's easily the worst chapter. And I mean, I like Han Solo. I think he did good. I liked his appearance in the end, I guess. I just don't think it's that relevant. I just don't care. I find it, I struggle to care because they don't talk about the mystery. They don't talk about the kids in his chapter. His interaction with the police chief aren't about the kids. And that's what I'm here. I'm here to learn about the kids being missing. You would think there'd be any interaction, a line between the police chief and him or anything about, the kids. I have a new insight on the kids, but there isn't any. And then you skip to the Drifters chapter and he ends up having an interaction with the kids that sort of involves the cop where, he goes into the house, but it's almost like the cop is just an auxiliary to his chapter, which barely interacts with the kids. And I don't know. I feel like that hindered a lot where it's like, and you see this great clip of Benedict Wong, his eyes are all bugging out and he's covered in blood and he's charging at Julia Garner. And you're like, oh, I want to know more about that. And then it hits you with a big cliffhanger and you're like, okay, you can hit me with a cliffhanger. That's a good movie technique. I'm excited. I want to know more about Benedict Wong. And then you get 2 whole chapters that are barely relevant before you finally get back to why Benedict Wong was tweaking. It took so long. And that's why I think we were saying like, oh, the movie felt like 4 hours. It's because you have 2 whole chapters where you're like, I want to know about Benedict Wong tweaking out. I don't care about why the cop
cheated on his wife, I guess, or got
cheated
stabbed.
On his wife, or I just so it's endearing. Like I think Zach Cregger did a good job at writing those characters. It was an interesting character, and I was invested. But it's just not relevant to the main story, and I think that's probably the biggest hit that the movie has is those 2 chapters.
Yeah, I wonder if he had written it in a linear structure. I do wonder about like the writing process. Is like, did he write the whole thing from start to finish and then think, oh, I can break this up here, 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 or did he write it with like with a non-linear structure in mind? Because I wonder like if he thought all like we obviously like as viewers we kind of see or we interpret certain things as fluff, like saying a lot of Paul's arc, but like if you wrote it start to finish, I just wonder like how much of that. Again, the order of operations is just a big question for me in terms of how these events are like they're incorporated into the story.
I feel like he must have written it as a chapter based one because it felt like it was more abiding to the fact that there was chapters rather than what the chapters can bring you as the watcher, which like as a consumer of media, you want it to be abiding to you. Like I want when I see multiple chapters, I want fun puzzle pieces to be connected in my head, right? Like I want to see the next chapter, especially in this not like we're kind of doing the same timeline over multiple different perspectives. I want it to make, I go, oh, that's why. And the only time I ever did this with this chapter structure is when, and the thing is because Chris, you were also like, I didn't get the paint thing. That was like the only time she gets witch written on her car in the first chapter. And she says, oh my God, somebody wrote witch on my car. And then in the next chapter, you see Josh Brolin have the red paint. And you're like, okay, he wrote witch. But Zach Cregger was so also determined to not rehash anything that he didn't actually show him writing witch. But in my mind, I was like, okay, that was one puzzle piece. Finally, there's a puzzle piece. I see why you have this nonlinear structure. But also, apparently, like Chris was also like, I wasn't quite sure what was going on. You could speak more on it. But I think he did it wrong in both ways. Like, I think you need to have like the viewer needs to be able to piece things together that they didn't know before, which never happens. And then also you need to show, I mean, he didn't want to rehash things. You don't want to rewatch things. And I think he did sort of a good job of that. But apparently it wasn't quite even enough. It was just a weird structure. I think that he had an idea for how he wanted the structure to go, and he built the movie around it rather than, oh, I think this would benefit the movie to have this sort of structure.
Yeah, I see it. And I think if that's the case, I think that's sort of the inherent flaw of the entire thing. Because like you said, nonlinear structure has to have like intent and purpose. Each time you visit a character, it has to like have a theme to it or like a certain event lore that you need to know like going forward. I was thinking too, just kind of like sketching out of my mind as you were talking is like, okay, maybe like Paul the cop's arc is like the indifference of the cops and like the corruption in the police department. You like maybe just focus on that. And then you sort of like all the events that happen are through that lens of like these cops really don't want to do anything. They're just like caught up in their own like BS and like to like do anything about it.
Right.
And like Archer's could have been like, or Josh Brolin's character could have been like the indifference of the families and helping him solve this mystery. Because obviously he visits that one Justin Long family. And initially the wife is like, I'm not going to let you into my house to see this video.
And then Justin
Long is like, that's fine. I'll let you see the video, sort of thing.
That's such
the
an
one
interesting
family
idea. And they didn't even they didn't go into it more.
Exactly. He visits the one family, and they reluctantly agree.
The wife and the husband,
thing.
like there's such an idea there that, and you get a touch of it. Oh, how come he was just able to do that when the husband showed up?
Because like you could even get like if you want like comedy, if like you also want plot and comedy, you can have Josh Brolin knocking on all these doors and getting all these weird responses. He's like trying to figure out finagle ways to like get footage and information. Yeah, and some of these people are just like, I don't want to give it to you, or like, oh, here's this little weird thing that I found. You know, that kind of thing where he like, something happened, there's like a progression to it. And by the time we like leave him, we are satisfied in like the aspect of what we've seen, and we've also like furthered the plot. And like Julia Garner's thing is like the trauma of feeling like responsible for losing your kids. She's like descending into alcoholism, you know? She's like, she feels just like so terrible like every day. And then you only get that in the first like 15 minutes of like this whole thing where like the initial setup. And then afterwards, it's just like, she's just like in other things. Like she just like meets Josh Brolin at the gas station because like he's like upset at her. And obviously like, again, he paints witch on it earlier, but like you really just lose like Julia Garner's entire thing after the initial setup of the movie.
So
like, yeah, there's just like no like general purpose to each part of it. And so like, that's why when you get to the end, you're like, okay, like, sure, whatever. Like all these characters are just kind of missing from the end.
Well, did anyone else feel like at the time when we're still in that first like 30 to 40 minutes of the film, or it might have been even less time because we had so many other chapters to get through, but when Benedict Wong is just running straight at Julia Garner and Josh Brolin, like I'm on the edge of my seat. This movie had up to that point is like almost hitting on everything that I thought was either promised, minus kind of the allure of like why the kids disappeared. And like, you know, at the end of the day, I'm like, I'm still trying to figure out what weapons means. And maybe it's not even supposed to be that deep, right? Like this could just be like Zach Cregger at the end of the day made what he wanted to make. And like, I'm not going to be out here trying to fan rewrite his like original film. But at the end of the day, the way it landed, you know, it seems like that's kind of like the impasse for a lot of us is like when you when you're setting up something that intriguing. And then remind me, do we go to the principal or do we go straight to Paul? And that's the other thing, is that I'm kind of like mixed up of where some of those final 4 chapters end up, other than, you know, Paul going before James as the dude living on the street with all the needles.
So I think it goes, you get Julia Garner's perspective, and then you get Josh Brolin's, and Josh Brolin's ends with Benedict Wong chasing, which is mind-blowing. And that's the thing, is cut out the cop and the drifter chapters, extend those two. And I liked, because the thing is that Benedict Wong being all cursed and like fucked up is great. That looks really good. It's scary. It's interesting. And the fact that you go 2 chapters without delving into that more is such a hit, because that is such an interesting moment. Yeah. Why is the guy who is so grounded and reasonable suddenly fucking charging at you with blood coming out of his face? Like, that's crazy.
He's the most reasonable guy in the entire film.
And he's the most reasonable guy. And you cut away, and that just destroys so much tension, I think. Like, because really, what you were saying is exactly right. Like, I even liked the swap to Josh Brolin, you know, because we're still in it. We're still doing this gradual arc of mysterious things that is, because Josh Brolin's adds a lot. You get it from the parent perspective. And then it ends with Benedict Wong charging. They just really needed to cut out the 2. I think you could have even cut out, pretend nothing else changes. You just cut out the cop and the drifter, and you go to Benedict Wong's chapter, and I'm happy. Because Benedict Wong chapter shows him like how that happens, and you get the finale of him charging her. You know, he gets blitzed by the car, which is brutal, awesome. You know, ripped to his husband.
R.I.P. One of them. Puking. Where did the puking come from? I was like, that's crazy. It was kind of a fun
black blood.
Like the practical effects. To talk about a positive in this film, because we have been critiquing some major parts of it. I think it's one of its strengths, alongside its comedy and like of the horror elements I really liked, was like the practical effects and like how someone like Benedict Wong looks when they're running. But it's not the same way like the kids look when he's running. They look so good. And honestly, the barf. It grew on me. That shit was hilarious. I was like, that's crazy.
I like how you also see him running, and it's like he gets, like, his eyes bug out more and more and more, and the blood dries on his face, because you learn the blood is from him smashing his skull. Like, that was good. The stuff that I was missing from the other chapters, the learning about what had happened. You know, you're piecing the puzzle pieces together. Oh my God, Benedict Wong got possessed, but he beat his husband to death, but it's you see him running, and he's running for so long without blinking, you know, his eyes get all fucked up, and it's like, oh, great, that's great. And plus, you know, when he ends up getting blitzed by a car, total accident. I mean, he was the weapon in the movie. He got turned into the weapon. I think there's something to say, maybe we can talk about parasites and weapons and the name of the movie, but he gets turned into a heat-seeking missile weapon, and he gets blitzed by a car because he just has a singular destination. And also the gore is really good. Man, when he's all strewn out across the road, I was like, hell yes, that looks great. I love to see him all blitzed apart. And you don't get too much of that, which I think in a movie like this, that pays off really well. When, oh my God, disgusting. Like Benedict Wong got obliterated by a car, and we hadn't seen any gore yet. That looks great. Like that's a good. His chapter was fucking awesome. That was a great chapter.
A small note, real quick, on how funny the convenience store owner is, because when Benedict Wong literally runs through a wall and Josh Brolin just like lineman tackles him out of nowhere, just like straight in the face. Dude's like, "Get out of my store!" And Julia Garner is like, "What the fuck?
Help me!"
If we're talking about nonlinear structure, I would have liked a quick cutaway to that convenience store owner.
Yeah.
Because he sees a few things where it's like, what is happening in my store? What the hell's happening in my store?
See, that would have been funny, dude.
We've talked about comedy, and the thing is, it is, in the end, a very funny movie. And I don't think that's a bad thing. In fact, I really liked that it was funny. It did catch me off guard, and especially with such dark imagery to start, like that, like George Harrison's sequence of them all running is so dark. like it's so dark where you want it to be a dark film and then it just isn't. But that being said, as a funny movie, it was very funny. I think Josh Brolin saying, "What the fuck?" after he gets jump scared in his own dream was actually hilarious. The ending was hilarious. And the thing is, people are freaking out about the ending being so funny. And I like that for them. I really like that they're like, the ending was really funny. Because it was a really funny ending. I just think that it's sort of clashed with my idea of the movie. And, you know, that's not a bad thing. Because like Dusk Till Dawn, that movie totally swaps genres halfway through, you know? Completely swaps genres. And I like that. But something about this movie having such a dark, evil premise and then going for such a funny end, it just isn't what I wanted necessarily. I wanted something dark and evil, and then I got something funny. And, you know, I laughed. I had a good time, but it's just not what I wanted, I think.
Well, let's talk. I just maybe talk a little bit about Gladys, like as an antagonist when she shows up in the principal's chapter, right? Benedict Wong is chatting with her. She kind of pops through. You've gotten little bits and pieces of her. Something that I think I didn't really think about during the film, but afterwards was like how she does kind of jump scare out at you as like the little like clown figure in the distance.
She waves when she's in the drifters thing.
Little Alex is like got
she does the jump scares twice.
Mm-hmm. And then little Alex has got the like, you know, it's like he's being controlled by the clown, like hello. And like all of these dream sequences happen at the very beginning, never to be revisited. Maybe another point we can talk about. But Chris, how did Gladys work for you as like kind of the main antagonist of this film? I know we talked a little bit at the top about we do maybe, you know, Lark and I'm not going to put the words in you. I'm going to let you say it. But, you know, like in like just like a witch being evil and like just happened to you just got luck of the draw, homie. Your great aunt is an evil witch and I guess she wants to live forever, or she's got an illness. You know what I mean? But how did that work for you, especially since that seems like a huge tonal shift kind of in the direction of the final third of the film?
Yeah. As a conclusion to the mystery, I don't know. But as a performance, it's very funny. Like Amy Madigan is very good, like in the movie. Like you could tell like she was having a great time. And I was having a great time. Like you guys are talking about sort of the teases were like, oh, she's maybe like a cursed demon clown everywhere. Like that did really work for me. I thought that was very cool. But like, again, as like a payoff, it's like, oh, it's just this lady that's learned to control branches. It's like, okay. Like, sure. Like, I'll go along with it. And again, I'm sure we'll talk about the ending soon. But it was just kind of like, okay, like this is like the lead up to it, you know? It's like, this is who's pulling all the strings. This is why everyone is like up in a tizzy. This is why all the kids disappeared. It's kind of like, as an ultimate conclusion to the movie, I wasn't a huge fan of it. But again, as a performance, I did like it.
Shout out Field of Dreams. Very random.
Shout out Field of Dreams. We were just talking about Field of Dreams. I'm the biggest Field of Dreams fan on the planet, so shout out to
Hey, we were just talking about
Gladys,
EFIS too. We gotta have a baseball episode one of these days.
Go watch EFIS. It's better than this movie. No, you should also watch this movie, but go watch EFIS.
Well, you said it already, Chris, before we get into the baseball analogies, because we'll just be here for another 2 hours talking about that. But you know, the final third, probably back fourth of this movie, from at least for me, where Alex's background begins, and I immediately get drawn back in. I cannot explain this feeling to you, but those two chapters with Paul and James, I just felt like I was in the Twilight Zone. And then when Alex's comes back on, I'm like, oh, we're back, baby.
Yeah. Now, just to clarify, Alex is the kid, right?
Alex is the kid. Alex is the kid.
See, that was the one where I think that was the one like chapter where like when it cuts and it says Alex on screen, the theater was like, oh, okay, like, where's this going?
We know that we're going to be revealed, like things are going to be revealed now, finally.
Yeah, it's like, finally, okay, we're kind of cooking a little bit here. And again, like you guys have said, the kid does a really good job. He plays it like it's a horror movie. Like it's like a dark thing. He's like a super like tortured child sort of thing. And he's running into this aunt that he doesn't understand with like these powers and like what you've done to my family and all that stuff. So again, the kid like really works for me. It's just tonally, again, it just all becomes kind of a mishmash at the end and how it's resolved.
It's like you put on a playlist on YouTube of the top 6 Zach Cregger sketches, and they all had the lore coming together at the very end with the kids running everyone over. No, I would have to agree wholeheartedly. I think Alex is one of my favorite parts of the film. The way that not only the child actor But I look this, Carrie Christopher, shout out you, my boy. You got a future, hopefully, if you want to keep doing this, because like I feel like even at a young age, like I don't know, had to be grade school, he's got it. Like
he was really good. He was a great actor.
Mm-hmm. No, he like you were talking about, because I'm gonna throw it over to you, Lark. Like you were talking a little bit at the very top about like, child actors don't really work out. Is it really their fault? Most of the time, heck no. Almost all the time, it's not, because it's just like what opportunities are we giving to literal children to like perform on an elevated level?
You don't know anything.
Yeah, but this kid knows. This kid played a traumatized, like attacked grade school kid very well. You just had to fill out the rest of the class with as many like young actors as possible, and then you just focused on the one that is probably like, I like to think Zach Cregger was like, all right, we got a class of 25. Whoever is the best actor here will get to be one of the leads. You know what I mean? And then Alex came out on top.
I mean, I think to Zach Cregger's credit, for the whole movie, in fact, visually it was stunning, especially when he wanted it to be stunning. All the kids running out in the night looked beautiful. And that's part of what made me that's such a haunting image. But so one of the fun images or haunting images, it's a good image, is the main kid has this big ass backpack, and he's so dwarfed with his backpack, and every time you see him, it's like your heart rings out for him, because he's just a little baby with a big backpack. It's like, it's a great image. It's a great image to see, and the actor did a really good job at portraying that character, like a little kid who gets fucked. I mean, he got fucked, and he did a really good job. He did a really great job. I think his chapter was one of the best. His performance was really good. What he did was really good. There's some sort of weird things where these fake puzzle pieces. I was talking about how, you want to put puzzle pieces together with the chapter system,
right?
And there's the drifter finds a can of soup, and he's like, "Oh, soup," and then later you're like, "Oh, it's because the kid has been feeding soup to all these people." But you're like, "What the fuck kind of puzzle pieces? I don't give a Oh, I saw soup." And so I'm supposed to be like, oh, soup. He's been feeding soup. Whatever, man.
I saw that Letterboxd review. It's like, oh, man, we got some soup here. Got some Campbell's chicken noodle soup. We got some soup. And he's like, look at the expiration dates. I'm going to put this away. I'm going to put that away.
I like that he fed soup. I like that as an idea. I think that character I really liked, because I think that's an interesting idea of having a child who doesn't know much. Suddenly his parents are gone, and his aunt is sort of telling him what to think and do, and she's threatened him in a way that a child understands, and he's just going to do it, abide by it, right. Not maliciously, and not that he even really understands that but it's just he's going to do what he hears. I think that guy played it perfectly. I think that role was perfect for him, because he ends up feeding everybody soup. His parents, he gives soup, because they're all sort of under the control of the wits, so they're all sort of paralyzed. Yeah. So he has to feed them soup, I guess, so they don't die. And so he ends up having to feed all the classmates soup as well. But it gives you an interesting... How much soup is
he buying?
Probably a fucking ton of soup. It gives you an interesting...
It's like 40 people.
Extra cinema perspective of this kid, where you're thinking... Man, like, no wonder he's also like exhausted, etc. during the class. Like, if all night he has to feed all these kids soup and stuff. Like, I think that both how he portrayed the character and also how the character was written worked really, really well. I think that kid did really great. Like, what would you do if you had to feed 30 kids soup every night? And then go to class the next day, and you have to not speak a word of it because your aunt said she would make your parents eat each other. Like, and you've seen that she can do that. I do think...
It's terrifying. The premise is terrifying.
The premise is terrifying. I think that... I don't have a huge issue with it, but when he watches Gladys a few times, and he ends up snapping the stick, which is what ends up in Gladys's death in the end of the film. Spoilers. I don't really mind that he is able to snap the stick and do magic of his own, But the magic system is very not defined, which I like. I like that it is not defined. But the fact that the kids end up tearing apart, there was one thing missing, and I don't know what that thing was. But he snaps it, and Gladys says, "Oh no!" And I thought it was going to be my parents. My parents no longer kill me, which would have been the natural thing for a kid in that position to do. It wouldn't be. They rip Gladys to shreds. The 40 students rip Gladys to shreds. You would have never thought about. You would have been like, my parents don't kill me, because his parents were attacking him.
Well, gnarly too, because the end of that film too, and when Gladys comes into it, like she's just like she doesn't look any better. Like that's my thing too. I'm like, what benefit did
she
Gladys
looks a little better,
just a little bit?
She had
but
more
how many
hair.
people do you need? Oh, natural hair.
Well, because here's the thing: is when he goes into her room and hey, aren't we all?
Hey, aren't we all?
When he goes into her room and she's like throwing up, like she has cancer or something, which I think is really interesting. I think they did a really good job with Gladys, but she's throwing up and she has these like 3 braids. She's mostly bald and she has like 3 braids of hair, which 1 looks great, 2 great characterization, like. It gives her this interesting character because she's always wearing this wig and has all this makeup. And to see her in this vulnerable state, I think is really interesting. Like, okay, she is a sick individual, and she doesn't want to be seen as this sick individual. I think that really clicked for me. And then later, when you also see her without makeup, like being herself, a good jump scare. She has way more hair, way more than 3 braids. She has a whole wispy. So clearly the 27 kids is actually having a positive. She is sucking something out of those kids, which is giving her real life force. I think you do see that she is better than she was. And I like that. I really like that.
Man, Chris, how did the end of this movie land for you? Especially the gory ass scene where then basically the kids are busting through 18 suburban homes, straight through the homes every single time.
Well, I'm glad we're here at the end because it's like in the moment it's funny. Like it's a funny, just like shocking thing. You're like, holy shit, they are going at her. They're tearing. They literally they split her face in half. And I just love that they just have all the kids like go in a straight line. They just immediately like spring out and attack, and they all go like break through windows, just go beast mode over anything that's like basically standing in the way of ripping Gladys to shreds. I thought like visually and just as an isolated bit, like if I saw that clip on YouTube, I would love that. I think I think it's great. Yeah. But as the conclusion to a movie, it made me feel like it was like this movie's one big gag. It's like you have all this very like serious, like dark buildup leading up to this, where it's like, oh, this is how it ends. Like it's just these kids getting ripped apart.
Yes.
Because then it does. I don't think like you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think that really like that doesn't break them out of anything. Like they're still like standing there, like completely
like vegetables at the very end of the film.
The ending monologue implies that they aren't really cured. They have to be, his parents are still drinking soup somewhere, invokes this old-timey idea of psychiatric hospitals, which I'm not a big fan of course, but, it's implying that you aren't fixed after this. You're still sort of...
like there?
In part, controlled, and you have to, I like the idea of what that means for the powers. Yeah. Like that it fucks up your brain permanently, I think. I'm also psychiatric hospitals. Like, can we not move on from that?
Yeah, again, like maybe that's the point of the movie, but like the way it concludes, I'm just like,
oh, it's over.
Yeah, no, okay. And that's even literally it. Like
Go ahead. Oh man, I was just like, even by the end of this film, like when it cuts off, like even the credits are a bit underwhelming too. And I'm like, there's not even like, I maybe even want a little bit more out of that. Like for example, I like the music. I like the type of vibe that Zach Cregger was trying to create with kind of the score of this film. But it just doesn't even come close to aligning with like where we end up and kind of that end gag that has a lot of horror elements. I mean, getting ripped to shreds is terrifying, but like it's done in such a comedic way because it's the kids. And I'm like, what's the full purpose of like capturing all these children especially since in my opinion, one of the biggest faults of the film is that we don't really get a whole lot more out of kind of how like even like suburbia is reacting to this, like the different parents are reacting to this. Like we get all of the most interesting parts of this film that, again, we all talked about expectations. I was very excited to see where teachers landed, where other like, you know, parents were, but that was like a third of the film, if not less. Because at the very end, Paul's gonna kill Julia Garner, and James is comedically getting tossed around the room by Thanos. Like, it's so funny.
That was funny.
It's so funny. Like, again, I think it's underrated how funny this film is. It's almost a complete 50-50 or 60-40 split of horror and comedy for me, you know?
Well, I want to say, it's like, I do want to reference like a director and like two movies that Lark and I that we have seen from Ari Aster, Beau is Afraid and Eddington. I was getting pretty strong. Like, I feel like Zach Cregger's trying to go for that sort of Ari Aster, like dark concept, but like genuinely like funny moments.
I was thinking about like, Eddington a lot during this. I think the way Eddington ended did what this movie tried to do way better.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I was getting like very similar energies from both of them. But like, I think Eddington, I think maybe one, because it is about like an actual event. It's about COVID and like society's like response or lack of response to it. I feel like it definitely ties, you know, it's able to like marry like the dark elements and the comedy better than what Weapons is sort of churning out. It feels like this is kind of Zach Cregger's like foray into that type of thing. Again, it's just because of, he's trying to do a lot. He's trying to do the horror, he's trying to do the comedy, he's trying to do the non-linear structure. And all of it together just isn't like the most cohesive thing in the end. I think that's where like Ari Aster's like, you know, I'm going to do a lot of weird stuff, but I'm going to keep it linear for the most part. I'm going to like go start to finish with like what I want to do. And I think that's maybe like one of the disconnects, but yeah, just a very strange way to end. I
100% agree. I think that exactly hits what my thought was.
Yeah. We had a lot of Lego pieces here that could have made up, I think, something that lived up to a bit of the expectations that we all kind of felt. Because I know we're a little bit over time here, so I think I'm just gonna wrap it up a little bit. Like, hey, yeah, boo, no, I think at the end of the day, something that really did help the way I thought about this as well, in this movie as a whole. And you all already gave your, if you like to give final thoughts, we'll spin around to that. But you've given your scores. Surprisingly, based on how much we low-key have been talking a lot about critiques to this film, I have settled on like a 4 out of 5. I think it's a really good like attempt at something that could have been a lot more. And I'm giving some more brownie points, admittedly, for something I don't think can be quantified by the quality of this film as much. But like, I really do think here, like, Zach Cregger does things that I don't think like work for me all the time. But I think this is a grand improvement on The Barbarian. It gets me really excited for maybe what this third film he'll eventually, I'm sure, get an even bigger budget for, and even bigger names.
Oh yeah, he'll get a third.
And like, hopefully it's not a Weapons prequel. Yeah, seriously.
I also, oh god.
Yeah. A whole nother
not
topic.
A Weapons prequel. Please no.
Please no.
But give him, I mean, I think it's clear from these two movies, he has a lot of interesting sauce. And I mean, it's the same
sauce,
with...
exactly. Yeah.
The guy who made Saw, his name is escaping me right now. And
not James Wan.
James Wan.
Yeah, James Wan. Put that man up right there.
The dude also has a very, I mean, people knew that, oh man, this guy is cooking something interesting that hasn't been seen before. Let's give him money. And I think Zach Cregger is a similar way. Just because I haven't really liked either of his movies that much doesn't mean that I don't see him as somebody doing something very interesting and unique. Sorry, there's a kitty.
Oh, we love kitties.
He's being so cute. He's being so cute. If only you guys could see him.
This is, look at this, YouTube exclusive. Oh, look at the little kitty. Look, there he is.
He's being so cute.
I wonder what little homie thought about Weapons.
He probably didn't like it very much.
He probably didn't like it.
But no, I think that Zach Cregger really has some interesting sauce. He's making unique and good movies. He's making unique and good movies, and I like what he's trying to do. Doesn't matter what I even thought about the movies. He's making really interesting things. So I would love to see him get a huge budget and make. I mean, I think we do live in a world where we unfortunately see a Marvel Zach Cregger movie where they're like, oh yeah, he's gonna make Blade. Doctor Strange.
Doctor Strange.
He's gonna
Doctor
make
Strange is
Blade.
exactly what I was thinking.
He's gonna make Doctor
Sam Raimi.
Strange, and it'll be nothing. It'll be but I mean, at least he'll make $1 billion, and he can go live his fucking happy life like Chloe Zhao did. Like, fuck you, Chloe Zhao. I love your films. I really wish you made more, but I would do your same thing in your shoes. I would make Eternals and peace out. Fuck it. Like, I would do that. I mean, I think Zach Cregger really has sauce. I think he's doing interesting work, and I really want to see him make more things. Just because I haven't necessarily agreed with what he's made doesn't mean I don't really respect what he's done.
Yeah, no, I would tend to agree. I think like a James Wan type of career arc where like he makes his horror, then he makes 2 Aquaman movies. Yeah. And then you can make something like Malignant, which is like very
shout
fun.
out Malignant.
I
Yo,
love
that's
Malignant.
a movie that's aged well.
Malignant's awesome.
Malignant. That movie's maybe crack up, especially also as a Seattleite. Like,
that's
in the Seattle
Yeah.
Underground, and I'm like, that is the fuck. What are you talking about?
Yeah,
bro?
this is totally what the Capitol Hill SPD precinct looks like. Like, nah, dog.
Yeah.
Oh man.
That movie has like the fakest rain I have ever seen in like some of the establishing shots, which is like hilarious. It's like they got like a some stock element, and it's just like cloudy Seattle, fake rain.
Yeah, fake rain.
I just love it. It's great. It works great.
Malignant and the Sonic the Hedgehog franchise both take place in Seattle, Washington. Stand up.
I've still never watched a single Sonic
Never watched
movie.
one either. Never watched one either.
I saw them in theaters, baby.
I know. I just
Stand
don't care
up,
about
Emeralds.
I just don't care.
Chaos Emeralds. Stand up.
I did watch Malignant.
I did watch Malignant. I do love my man Ben Schwartz. That was my guy. But hey, y'all, I think we've probably talked around everything we can talk about with weapons. I'm just gonna go around real quick. Chris, score one more time for the people, and we'll round about.
3 out of 5. Taking it right back to the beginning. It's 3 out of 5. You all know why now. So that's all I'm gonna say. Yeah, because I spoiled my rating right at the beginning.
Had to.
Yeah, you did.
That's it.
Lark.
Yeah.
Yeah, at the moment I'm at 3 out of 5. Follow me on Letterboxd, obviously. But I mean, here's the thing: is if it's gonna change over time, it might go down to a 2.5. But I think it'll stay at a 3 because I had a lot of fun. I had fun watching it. I enjoyed watching it. I mean, it's just for all the reasons we discussed, it will never be more than that, But I had fun. I had fun. It's worth watching. It is a fun movie.
Yeah, and I'd probably have to finish us off here and top it off with 4 out of 5 Narutos. Just because I'm feeling like there's something about this film I was somewhat convinced about by good friends of mine that felt much higher about it, but kind of brought me into, I think, appreciating a bit more about the comedy aspects. I don't think I felt as much about this being a horror coming out of it initially that I did when I talked with some folks and recontextualized the scenes. I mean, truly, there's a version of this film that cuts off about 20 to 30 minutes of fat, and the fat of that are some of the less important, at least to me, less important chapters that are told towards the middle of this film. And there's a version of it that ends a bit stronger and gives me a bit more of what I'm looking for, especially with those expectations. But I do lament the fact that I did not go into this movie without as much, how do I say it, as many blind eyes to things in general about how this film was going to end up. So I'm going to give it 4 out of 5, though, give Jonas a kind of a fun opportunity to give 4 Narutos across the screen right there. But y'all, I know it's been a long episode already. I'm going to just throw it over to you, Chris, and then Lark, to talk to us and the viewers, listeners, and what have you about what you all have been watching, what you've been enjoying outside of weapons over the last couple weeks.
So a few that I want to shout out in particular. I watched Martin Scorsese movie called After Hours. It's like a
I love After Hours.
You love After Hours? That's sick. Yeah, it's like a kind of a dark comedy where a dude who's like, kind of running through New York, getting himself into like tons of trouble. Some of it very shenanigansy, some of it actually genuinely dark. It is definitely the definition of like a dark comedy. But I don't know. It's just like in general, like it's just a great time. I don't know. Lark, you've seen this movie, right?
Yeah. I actually genuinely love After Hours. I think it's a fun, strange movie.
Yeah.
There's almost
Like-
no way to describe it either. It's just a
Yeah.
journey.
Just watch it, I guess.
Very fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just goes. It's basically just like one night where this guy is like, the basic setup is like he's going in for like, he meets a lady at a diner, and then he goes to like hook up with her, and then just chaos ensues. That's really the best way I can describe like the premise of the movie. And then everything afterwards is just like this very wild ride. So honestly, like, you know, I've watched a lot of Scorsese movies, but this honestly might be my favorite one, just because it was like, it didn't have like the very usual suspects, like the Robert De Niro's, the Harvey Keitels. Like, it was a lot of people that just like I'd really never seen in any movies before, and it just felt like they were just people, and he was just like filming them. It
American
felt like a
Werewolf
very
in
like,
London. That's the only thing that I ever knew the main guy from. American Werewolf in London.
Oh, okay.
Which is
I
a
haven't seen that.
great fucking movie. So
Interesting. And then, so that's After Hours. I give that a 4.5 out of 5.
Ooh,
and the
great
other one I
film.
just watched, yeah, it's great. Definitely recommend it. The other one I watched is Hundreds of Beavers. And Hundreds of Beavers is another 4.5 out of 5 movie. I've gotten this recommended by a couple people. And so I've been putting it off for a long time. Not because I didn't want to watch it, just because I had to find the time to watch it. But once I did, it comes at you like a mile a minute. There are so many, it's like, it's just this, you know, so many gags. And basically all of them work. They're just able to like, just for the fact that like the entire movie is basically just gags, even though there is a story to it, but it's like, it's crazy the amount of ways that they're like able to like mess with your expectations, you know, and you basically just follow this one guy, like just bumbling his way through this kind of hybrid silent movie world. Like, the beavers are just guys in suits. There's a horse that's literally, it's two guys, but you can see the guy in the horse suit, which I thought was so funny. Like, they just keep setting up the fact that all the animals are just humans in suits, and then you just see a guy with like a blank face just pointing out of the horse suit. I just thought was great. Like, just every little like tiny thing to kind of mess with your expectations, they do. And it's like, again, it's this blend of like silent movies and like feels like YouTube comedy and like all this stuff just kind of like mashed into this one thing. I would definitely, if you're looking for a good time, I definitely recommend Hundreds of Beavers.
Incredible.
they do the rule of thirds so well, where you get a joke, you laugh, and then it comes back one more time, and you're like, okay, haha. And then it comes back a third time, and you're like, oh my god, it's perfect. It's the most Looney Tunes movie I've seen in 1,000 years. I also highly recommend Hundreds of Beavers.
Yeah, Lark.
Yeah. What about you,
Yeah,
Lark?
what have you been tapping into, sir?
I really enjoyed recently Sorry Baby.
Oh yeah, I'll watch that. That's good.
Yeah, man, that movie made me fucking cry, man. That is an intense but really great movie. It's a directorial debut from the main actress and director. I don't know her name, but
Eva
man,
Victor? Yeah.
Yes, Ava Victor. It's very good. It's really just watch it. It's really good. Very moving film. And then I'm trying to think what else. I watched Killer of Killers was pretty
Yes,
fucking
Predator,
awesome.
Yes.
And then I watched a weird movie called Love, Lisa with Philip Seymour Hoffman from like 2002, maybe 2004,
Damn.
which also really blew my mind. I mean, I'm obviously the biggest Philip Seymour Hoffman fan on the planet. I always have been. So at this point, I would have thought I've seen every single one of his movies, but clearly not. There's a movie called Love, Lisa, where his wife dies right in the beginning, and it's about his coping with it, I guess, and he gets addicted to huffing gasoline. And that's like the spur of the movie. Like, so he's addicted to huffing gasoline, and his coworker comes and she smells gasoline, and she says, why do I smell gasoline? And he goes, well, I like remote control planes. And then she goes, okay, well, my cousin loves remote control planes, so I'm going to hook him up with you. So then he actually has to get into remote control planes. It's very, very interesting. It's a great movie. If you like Philip Seymour Hoffman, you're probably going to love it. It was really, I love it. I mean, he did an incredible job. It was very emotionally moving. I was stunned. It's one of his random movies. If you like drama and you like Philip Seymour Hoffman, you're gonna love it. Love Lisa.
We're Philip Seymour. We're Philip Seymour Hoffman fans on this pod. Big Philip.
He's
Seymour
my
Hoffman
favorite
fans.
actor of all time.
We watched Mission Impossible 2 and 3 in a row recently, and the jump in villains is like insane.
Night and day.
Yeah, it's night and day. Like
I have,
the
I have
fact
a lot
that
of opinions. I didn't even think Mission Impossible 3 is the greatest Mission Impossible, but obviously Philip Seymour Hoffman is a fucking
100%.
god. In that
yeah,
movie.
he's the best part of the movie.
part.
The fact that it cold opens with him just like intensely grilling Tom Cruise, you're like, all right, this is a is a big step up.
That's a great
Yes.
from the very
back.
misogynist villain in Mission
He's so
Impossible
good.
2.
The part where he puts the mask on, he's in the bathroom, and are you okay, boss?
Yeah.
And he has to like cough to get the
So good.
You guys gotta watch Mission Impossible 3. Well, the Mission Impossible movies are fucking goated. Just watch all the Mission Impossible movies.
Watch them all.
I know.
Wow,
Sorry, my
we're
cat's
cutting
being
into
mad.
dad time with the cat, so I'm gonna keep it running then, and just talk to you all about. I feel like it'd be a disservice. I watched a few more things this week that are not nearly as good as a transformational piece of art that I got a chance to watch. Hideaki Anno's classic 90s anime film, End of Evangelion, which is the famed a cultural phenomena that took over Japan and then the world, right? One of the godfathers of just everything you see in anime, or things especially coming out of Japan, animation-wise and storytelling-wise, are absolutely derived from watching this film growing up. Like, this is something that I think left me... It's one of the most depressing movies I've ever seen in my life. I give it a 5 out of 5 immediately. I have to get that off the top. 5 Eva suits out of 5. Put it up there. It's not only so transformational that it knocked... What did I knock off? It doesn't even matter. I just put it in my letterbox top
What
4.
did you knock off? I'm
Yeah.
curious.
Yeah, we're gonna see what your 4 favorites
Past
are.
lives.
Right?
What
Past
did you
lives
boot
came
off?
Past lives got
did
booted
you-
off for End of
Past Lives
Evangelion.
came- okay.
Past lives?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And End of Evangelion may just have the number 1 spot now. While being one of the most depressing things I've ever seen, it also left me with like, I was like, damn, I gotta really, like, if you look up reviews across the board from any users, if it's Letterboxd or Rotten Tomatoes or any place you log reviews, like, I think most of the time you're gonna find people who says like, oh, I didn't actually consider therapy until this moment because I'm rethinking everything. And like, even though I've been to therapy and like I've done my own stuff, I was like, this is the type of movie that left me like literally thinking about how I interact with humans on a day-to-day basis. Like, I should also predicate this again with like End of Evangelion is the end of not only 26 goated episodes of anime that also came out before this, but it's like basically the fans had asked for more out of Anno and his crew when they ran out of funding for the final 2 episodes. The final 2 episodes of Neon Genesis Evangelion are very interesting and abstract and bizarre because a lot of them had to use basic drawings because of how much funding they ran out of. So the end of the series is still technically the end, but it takes place within the context of then what eventually came out, which is this movie, End of Evangelion. It's so crazy. Yeah, and there was just like this reaction from Evangelion fans that the creator doesn't even like. So there's a lot of shit that happens in End of Evangelion that is almost like kind of directed at the fans that were giving him, you know, I'm sure he got death threats and just like the nastiest of the nasty. And if you watch this film and you know about like kind of the history of why he even wrote this story to begin with, like he was going through his own depression at the time. And like there's so much to do with like self-worth. There's a lot of commentary on like, I don't know, how we interact just with people across the board and like why we keep ending up in these cycles of trauma and war and just like being afraid of each other. And oh my God, I love it so much. And on top of that, giant mechs fighting that are like not even really mechs. Like it's like if Gundam was even scarier, right? That's what Evangelion is. So I could wax poetic about this for hours. I know we're at the end of the episode now, but like please watch the 26 episodes and then watch the End of Evangelion. There are these rebuilds that also exist that kind of tell the full story over the scope of 25 years, which are next on my list, which I'm sure I'll talk about on this pod. But I could not honestly right now recommend anything more than Evangelion. I know a lot of people have seen it. I know we talked about it before. It's on y'all's list. I love it so much, and it made me feel terrible about myself, but also really good. And I really just haven't had a feeling from a movie like that ever. And talk about also just a great conclusion to like a series. And like, I just don't think you get a lot of like great endings. And this is one of the great endings, you know,
especially like a
in
movie
animation.
ending. Like,
Yeah.
they were granted a whole movie.
Whole movie. You see the budget. You know where they added in the animation budget. You see where the music went up a level. You like the storytelling is like they have more ability to make the thing because of how popular this very, transformational anime was to begin with, that they got all that money to make a goated ass anime movie. So, that's something I wish I could have seen it in theaters. I know it was re-released recently in 4K, but wow, to see it for the first time is really something that I cannot describe. More than saying, go see it, 5 out of 5. With that being said, Lark, you got anything for the people as guest of the pod today before you got to go over to cat dad duties?
Nooch, do you have anything you want to say? Oh no, he doesn't. He's being very polite. Watch Ephus.
Ephus.
Yes.
It was so great. If you guys like baseball, I didn't even talk about this in with the things I like that I watched. Go watch Ephus. I really enjoyed Ephus.
Man,
that's what I have to say. Watch Ephus.
Incredible.
Hell yeah.
Well, Chris, Lark, Andrew Leever, we have reached the end of this episode. Go watch Weapons. Go watch Ephus. Go check out all the films we've talked about today.
Sorry, baby.
Sorry, baby. But again, Lark, thank you so much for coming on today and chatting with us about Weapons. It was a fun time.
Thank you guys for having me.
Absolutely. Well, folks, this has been another great episode that has been a fun time having Lark on of Pinoys versus the World. As always, has been executively produced by Jonas Hilseth. And again, thank you to you for watching. As always, my name is Harald Hilseth.
My name is Chris Ankiko.
And I'm Lark.
It's Lark.
I did it.
Thank you.
I'm Lark.
Thank you for watching this episode of Pinoys versus the World. We will talk to you all in the next one. Peace.